before Napoleon conquered Europe, before the Eiffel Tower pierced the sky, before the grand boulevards and glittering cafes of the Belle Epoque, before revolution tore down the old world and remade it anew, there was medieval Paris, a walled city of narrow streets, towering Gothic cathedrals, and hundreds of thousands of souls crammed onto islands in the Seine. This was Paris in the age of kings and crusades, when stonemasons were building monuments that would stand for 1,000 years, and when the very foundations of Western civilization were being laid in universities, churches, and royal courts. In this video, I use modern AI tools to bring historic paintings, maps, and engravings to life, shifting perspective, changing camera angles, and moving through these scenes in ways their original artists never imagined possible. If you stay with me until the end, we'll explore how these same locations appear today, revealing what time has preserved and what has vanished forever. Before we enter the crowded streets of medieval Paris, it helps to understand how this extraordinary city began. This illustration shows Paris in the 1100s, centered on the Île de la Cité, the island in the Seine that had been inhabited since Roman times. The entire city could fit on this small island in the immediately surrounding banks, protected by walls and connected to the mainland by wooden bridges that were constantly being rebuilt after floods and fires. Standing on the muddy banks of the Seine during these years, you would have seen a city dramatically different from anything that exists today. No grand boulevards, no massive palaces, no iron towers reaching into the sky. Just stone walls, church spires, and the constant activity of a medieval city struggling to grow beyond its ancient boundaries. This painting depicts Notre Dame Cathedral in the 1200s, rising magnificently above the Île de la Cité. Construction had begun in 1163 under Bishop Maurice de Sully, and by this time, the massive Gothic structure was beginning to dominate the Parisian skyline. The cathedral represented the pinnacle of medieval engineering, flying buttresses supporting walls that seemed impossibly thin, allowing massive stained glass windows to flood the interior with colored light. Building Notre Dame took nearly 2 centuries and required the labor of thousands of craftsmen, stonemasons, and laborers. Standing in its shadow during construction, you would have witnessed an incredible feat of human ambition, a building designed to inspire awe, to draw the eye heavenward, and to proclaim the power and glory of the Church for generations to come. This same cathedral still stands today, having survived wars, revolutions, and a devastating fire in 2019, remaining one of the world's most recognizable symbols of Gothic architecture. This scene captures the bustling life around the Petit Pont, one of the bridges connecting the Île de la Cité to the left bank. Medieval bridges weren't just crossings, they were communities unto themselves. Houses, shops, and even chapels lined both sides of the bridge, creating narrow passages where merchants sold their wares, beggars asked for alms, and crowds of people pushed through the constant flow of urban life. Walking across this bridge, you would have been surrounded by the sounds and smells of medieval commerce. Fishmongers selling their catch from the Seine, bread bakers hawking loaves, and craftsmen calling out from tiny workshops built directly onto the bridge itself. The river below served as both highway and sewer, with boats carrying goods upstream and waste flowing downstream in an endless cycle. This illustration shows the Louvre as it appeared in the 1200s, not the magnificent palace and museum we know today, but a forbidding fortress built by King Philip II to defend Paris from English invasion. Thick stone walls, circular towers, and a massive keep dominated the western edge of the city, standing as a reminder that medieval Paris existed in a constant state of military threat. The fortress served as both defensive stronghold and royal treasury, housing the king's wealth and important prisoners within its walls. Today, parts of these original medieval foundations can still be seen in the basement of the modern Louvre Museum, offering a glimpse into Paris's martial past beneath one of the world's greatest art collections. This painting depicts Sainte-Chapelle in the 1200s, shortly after its completion in 1248. Built by King Louis IX to house precious Christian relics, including what was believed to be Christ's crown of thorns. The chapel represented the absolute pinnacle of Gothic architecture. Its walls seemed to disappear entirely, replaced by massive stained glass windows that created an interior flooded with jewel-toned light. The chapel still stands today on the Île de la Cité, its windows restored, continuing to inspire the same awe in modern visitors that it created over 700 years ago. This scene shows the left bank in the 1200s, where the University of Paris was transforming education throughout Europe. Students from across Christendom gathered in this neighborhood to study theology, philosophy, law, and the liberal arts under masters who were shaping medieval thought. The Latin Quarter earned its name from the language of instruction, creating a cosmopolitan atmosphere where ideas mattered more than birthright. The narrow streets around the university teemed with young scholars, many living in poverty, while pursuing knowledge that would shape the future. Debates raged in taverns and lecture halls about the nature of God, the structure of the cosmos, and the proper relationship between faith and reason. This intellectual ferment made Paris not just a political capital, but the educational heart of medieval Europe. This illustration captures the Marché des Halles in the 1300s, Paris's central marketplace where food from across the kingdom converged to feed the growing city. Covered stalls stretched across a vast area where farmers, butchers, fishmongers, and bakers sold everything necessary for survival. The market operated with its own regulations, its own courts, and its own fierce sense of independence from royal authority. Standing in the market during those years, you would have experienced medieval Paris at its most visceral. The smell of fresh bread mixing with the stench of blood from the butcher's quarter, the calls of vendors competing for attention, the press of bodies as thousands of people conducted the daily business of buying food. This painting shows the Palais de la Cité in the 1300s, the royal palace where French kings held court before moving to the Louvre and eventually Versailles. The palace complex dominated the western end of the Île de la Cité, with its massive halls hosting royal ceremonies, legal proceedings, and the daily business of governing the kingdom. Today, parts of this palace survive as the Palais de Justice and the Conciergerie, where Marie Antoinette would be imprisoned centuries later during the Revolution. This scene depicts Paris during the Black Death in 1348 to 1349, when plague swept through the crowded medieval city, killing perhaps half its population. Bodies piled in the streets, churches overflowed with the dying seeking last rites, and the normal rhythms of urban life collapsed into chaos and terror. The plague exposed the fragility of medieval civilization, showing how quickly order could dissolve when death came calling. Those who survived emerged into a transformed world. Labor shortages gave workers new bargaining power. Traditional authorities faced unprecedented challenges, and questions about divine justice and human suffering echoed through every level of society. The plague years marked a turning point between the confident High Middle Ages and the more uncertain era that would follow. This illustration shows the walls of Paris in the 1300s expanded multiple times as the city grew beyond its original island boundaries. Charles V ordered new fortifications built in the 1370s, creating a defensive perimeter that enclosed both the right and left banks. These walls, punctuated by massive gates and defensive towers, defined the limits of the medieval city and controlled all access to its interior. Walking through one of the great gates meant passing from countryside into urban space, from the wild into the civilized, from one legal jurisdiction into another. Guards checked travelers, collected tolls, and controlled the flow of goods into the city. This painting captures the Cathedral of Notre Dame, completed in the 1300s. Its twin towers finally finished, its massive rose windows installed, and its full glory revealed after centuries of construction. This was the Paris before empire, before revolution, before modernity, yet already creating the monuments and institutions that would shape Western civilization for 1,000 years. Subscribe to the channel to explore ancient cities, vanished empires, and historic moments, all reconstructed through AI and historical research.